Good morning, George.
Good
And
mo-
how are you today?
Good morning, Chris. I'm feeling good. How are you?
It's wet and miserable and gloomy here in West London. What's it like in in Sweden, should I say? I
Uh,
was about to say Stockholm,
but
to
it's
be Freudian.
a bit Freudian, yeah. No, it's a bit gloomy here today. The sun was out
Yeah.
for 5 minutes, but now it's gone back to bed.
Oh, and congratulations on joining NATO.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a very interesting discussion here. The consequences of
Yeah,
NATO. Big discussion.
indeed. And maybe that's one of the things that we'll look at as we launch into the next chapter of our experiment of trying to look at things like nobody else is looking at them, to build upon our experiments of the last 3 years. When if you think about it, Clubhouse was a huge dip into an unknown, and some of the other little activities. But I guess for people who will hopefully listen and engage with us here, we want to bring a whole new facet to the discussion around work, the future of the workplace, and how that interacts with the changing nature of the workforce, and to go beyond all of the current conventional debate and discourse, which, I think that what we agree on most things, but and we disagree on some, I know, but we're agreed there's a hell of a lot of noise out there, and what we're attempting to do with this platform is everybody else can do their corporate stuff. We want to actually speak plainly and bluntly as two Celts with very different backgrounds, and go beyond
Yeah,
the typical discourse. Is that what we've agreed, George?
yes, that's
Have I
what
got that right?
I think it's what we agreed on. It's interesting, going back to your opening question there about NATO. We've had around our family over our evening meals over the last 2 3 days this whole discussion. What does NATO mean? Talking about conscription and talking about what does it mean about nuclear weapons and everything else. And I was talking about this with the family, and I said, the people outside of Sweden, if you want to talk about the people in the UK, have no idea what we're talking about. And my wife then turned around and she said to me, "But why should they care? We're just a little island. People in Britain don't know who Sweden is and what it stands for and everything else." So I started rattling off about IKEA and Volvo and ABBA and stuff like that. I said, but they don't know us. We don't know us at all. And I think that's a part of what we're trying to do here. We've tried a number of experiments over the last 3 4 5 years, trying to discuss what does it mean to work in a new way, work in if you think about a hybrid, and what does that really mean, and what is the future of work. But we seem to be talking to the preacher, and everybody else seemed to be insular and looking inside and not thinking forward. And so we want to boldly go where no man has gone before, as the old Captain Kirk would say. We're trying to talk beyond what people really want to talk about, and try to open up and not be scared to talk about things that really people are scared to talk about. Whether it is about health and safety, whether it's about commuting, whether it's about homelessness, whether it's about the right, what is the right time to work, even as simple as how to switch off your telephone in the evening, how to switch off your email, how to switch off the constant bombardment of communication that's coming through and noise that's coming through. So what we're trying to do here is really open up, build on what we've done so far, bring in people who want to have a point of view, and talk about, if you want to call it, the new way of working.
Yeah, and I think it's it's a much wider discussion than that, as we found last year in doing the various workshops around, helping the BCO decide what they're going to research for the next 3 years, and concluding that they need to hurry up because research over a 3-year program may be too slow, given all the massive changes that are taking place at pace and at scale. And also, if you think about it, one of our discussions of whatever the year before last, I can't remember, we ended up talking about climate change and Bangladesh being flooded and what might that do for global sort of migration patterns, or the fact that you can't insure most ground floors of most buildings in Miami already. And people are trying to say, climate change is something we can just kick the can down the road. Well, maybe not. But also, another can that is desperately being kicked down the road is this idea that everybody is working differently. And if you look at recent press here in the UK, there's and particularly the property ones, a recent quote from and John said, "Return to work boosts resilient central London office markets." And I would say people are they're deluding themselves. Things have changed and they ain't going back. And that means that all the old models and templates and way we thought about things has just gone out the window. And as we've learned over the last 3 years in particular, we need, we've used the word bold on a couple of occasions, but we're going to keep using it, and we're going to use it unashamedly, because hopefully by people engaging with us here, and we'll have all the usual subscriber channels and offline chats, because we want to get people who are willing to engage over a virtual platform to have the ability, as we discovered in Clubhouse. Like, we never thought in our wildest dreams that we'd be getting people from all over the world, from Israel, from South Africa, from North Africa, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, the West Coast, the East Coast, all over the place. And we picked up a couple from Latin America as well. And all of these folk are a little band. And, I thought the title of Who's Moving the Cheese is something which we could keep as part of our, efforts moving forward. But I think everybody really needs to get real about the fact that we're in a very different environment across the board.
I mean, I was reading this morning that 50 years ago in the UK we were just coming out of the 3-day week because of the power struggles. 50 years ago the television was switched off at 10:30 in the evening. So it's only 50 years ago. There's so many things have happened, but we're still moving into falling back into the easy things. And again, as I said before, I think, is it a question that humans are lazy, or is it just that we just don't like to change things? And today, when we talk about, if we think about work, who's helping us describe what work really means? The question, where does work come from? We're fixated about place. We're fixated about an office. We're fixated about a home office, but we're not discussing what we're trying to do and when do we do it. And so I think that it's not just businesses who are looking for what is the future of work. I think also the consultants and the people who advise, workplace consultants and architects and people who work from the logistics of how to get backwards and forwards to work, people who work with legal systems and laws and order and everything else. There are so many questions that need to be brought up and discussed in an open way. And as I say, I have this challenge. I think people are just being insular and looking at their belly button and thinking, okay, do I really need to do this? At the same time, they've got their iPhones or their mobile phones on one hand, their iPads on another hand, their televisions are changing. The way that we entertain is completely different. So there is change from a domestic side, but from a business side, we're resistant to that change. And that's why I think this is interesting, because everybody needs to have a point of view and just bring that, and has a point of view, and bring that into the forum.
And I think that's a great point, and that we discovered last year, and certainly over all the years, but last year in particular, bringing different points of view and disparate perspectives into the conversation. Like I it still sticks in my mind when our friend Valentina responded to an academic saying, the educational model is broken. And by the way, my place of work is a bomb shelter in Kiev. And if you look at it, why don't people move on? Well, I think I've come up with a little another three C's. I think we're all fundamentally creatures of habit. We like doing things in a certain way. There was this whole way of thinking about life. If you look at the writings of philosophers and whatever, is you grow, you learn, you live, and you die. And now we're looking at 100-year lifespans. Certainly 65 is no longer the notional retirement side of things. And we were all accustomed to going somewhere to work, and COVID threw that up in the air. And the other thing about it is that we're all most comfortable in our own comfort zones. We have a way of doing things, and you're a classic outlier in that you decided to leave Bonnie, Scotland, and go make a life for yourself and have a family in southern Sweden. Not many people do that, because the other thing is sticking, I suppose, a continuation of the old order. Under normal circumstances, you would have stayed in Scotland, and I would have stayed in Ireland running the family pub.
Yep.
That's what was expected, because that's the way things have. And if you take the workplace, the workforce, the world of work, you have the complication of hierarchy, you have the complication of process. Like most office buildings in particular are just the descendants of the industrial age factory and the production line, and paper was the product. And then wrapped up in all of that then was work models, pay and reward, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 2 weeks holiday, blah, blah, blah. And all of that stuff is being thrown up into question. And that's uncomfortable. And that goes back, we had the good fortune to get to know Wanda Wallace, a remarkable lady, and her podcast, Out of the Comfort Zone, is a shout out to that today, because that's another one which challenges conventions in the discussions she had. But that's the essence of what we're trying to do here, I hope, George. That we started off without a fixed agenda. We don't have a script. We could talk about anything. And I guess that's what makes, I think, our essence, really, because we recognize that it's all about diversity. And maybe I just want to bring the conversation around a little bit to, everybody's now talking about this future of the workplace, the future of work, what work itself is going to look like. And I was really struck by Eugenia saying to us about the event she was at recently, where even the world of art, would you believe it, people are now painting about working from anywhere. And she shared with us Angela Loveridge's wonderful painting of somebody working, I think it was in a swimming pool, beside a swimming pool. And it's a lovely piece of art, and we'll put the reference in the show notes. But if the discussion, which was traditionally the preserve of a very narrow group of people, real estate, construction, facilities, designers, architects, contractors, whatever, suddenly that cozy little mini ecosystem has now been the boundaries have been made much more porous, and it is both subject to a lot of interest, but also subject to a lot of external forces beating down on it, which I think if people in my industry, clear definition here, I wouldn't want to drag you in by association at all, George, because you are the ultimate outlier. I think many of them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But and over the months ahead, we're going to test that,
Yes.
aren't we, George?
Yes. And I think one of the things that we realised is this painting shows a lady working in a swimming pool, like a cafeteria, and in there she's got her mobile phone, and she's talking away, and there are other people there, whether they're children or whether there's teachers or whether. So you're seeing a place of with different things happening, and she's working while their children are in the swimming pool, for example. Now, for me, that's what's strange about that. There is nothing strange in my eyes in that at all. But for many people who are looking at the painting, they go, "Is this what we're doing? Is this the right way? Is this?" And I think that's what we're getting to now, is that ultimately it's hitting the fan. People are realising there is a different way to work, and what is work, and how we should work. And so we're not kicking down barn doors just for fun. We're actually trying to open up and get that discussion going and see what is the meaning and what really is the meaning. And I think one of the things that we talked about recently is when we use the word paper and the paperless office. But actually the office is designed for paper. And so people need to go to the office to actually work with paper. Now, if you don't work with paper, and we don't work with paper in that way, we don't need that office. And is that true, that paper is the same as office? Maybe or maybe not, but I think it's one of these things that we need to look at. How much paper do we use, and what is the purpose of it, and why do we do this? Another discussion is I also hear people go to their workplace and then sit all day on a Teams call or a Zoom call, and you go, so what's the point in going there? Is it just because you want to meet somebody else because we're humans and we need to talk to other people? Fine. Is the office the right place to do that? One of the questions. And so I think what we'll try to do is that we may create more questions than we actually identify answers. And again, that's fine, because it doesn't have to be a binary answer to every question.
And we we've both been very lucky to have what many would describe as extraordinary career paths, but we don't know the answers, and that's why we wanted to reach out to people, to say, look, it's fair. Why don't you come and help us and have the ability to look at these issues? Maybe they have the answers to some of the questions. I don't know, but I think that's where, to bring this first segment to a close, it's the answer about, we need to go beyond the current discourse. We need to have honest conversations. We need to look at fresh perspectives. And we would hopefully, when we started Clubhouse, we said no one's going to listen to it. And then the audience built and built and built. And maybe this might happen now. We don't know, ladies and gentlemen. This is truly an experiment. And hopefully we've piqued your curiosity.
Yep.
Hopefully we've prodded. Because we are going to prod. This is no holds barred. This has to be truly honest, objective. And we need to seek out the real questions that need to be asked. And we also need to have the courage to address how we might go about solving them. And we won't solve them all, but maybe we'll solve some.
And we're not.
Is that about George?
And we don't have a fixed agenda. So we won't.
Yeah.
So please contact us if you want us to discuss something or be involved in the discussion, and we're just going to build and talk and try to squeeze some knowledge out of this over time. We knew it worked. We ultimately worked with everything we've done so far. This was our first day, our first experiment using this format. So give us feedback. tell us if it's good, if it's bad, what's right and what's wrong. We'll get better, of course, because we're going to make lots of mistakes. That's one thing we're going to do, is make lots of mistakes. But I'd like to say thank you for watching us. Thanks, Chris, for today. And I think we should just take it from here.
Have fun, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.